Everyone, happy Wednesday to you. Another night of NETIV. I'm glad you joined us. This is going to be a interesting lesson because we're going to learn Hebrew tonight, something that some of us have always wanted to do. And it's not, well, let's put it this way. This morning, early this morning, I was scanning the YouTube site for predictions for 2025. Now, I found about 30 sites, and I wasn't really working very hard to find them. And the list included messages from, well, such figures as Nostradamus, who's obviously died in the 1600s, or President Trump, or Pope Francis, who's no longer with us, and Indira Gandhi, who's also passed away. And another woman who I have no idea who she is, but evidently she's very involved in this and has now passed on. Her name is Baba Vanga. So she's done this. I also found 4 astrologers and 5 psychics who wrote for this year. And I also found a site from AI. And finally, the best site that I found was from Homer Simpson. And he was talking to his son Bart. But anyway, those were the sites that I found. So you can see the list is somewhat lengthy, but it's not unexpected. Now, most share the common fears that of mankind's, like wars or wars in Europe or in Middle East. They talk about climate change and global warming and leading to power outages and food shortages. They talk about cyber attacks. They talk about pandemics. They talk about economic collapse in several places. And they also talk about the rise of the Antichrist and alien contacts. This year, we're supposed to have an alien contact. So those are the things that they've concentrated on. Now, looking through the list, I can honestly say that I have nothing original to share that fits any of those. As I shared these last 2 weeks, that at the end of each of the parshas, there's always, in fact, if you haven't seen, this is the humash or humash, depending on how you want to pronounce it. This is the Jewish commentary on the first 5 books. I've always said that God wrote the first 5 books and the rest of it's commentary. So whenever you pick up a book, I know that the first 5 books are the real thing. And anyway, in going through this, I noticed that there was one parsha that we constantly go through, and it's the parsha called Miketz. And in the Parsha, at the last page of each section, they always have a little caption down at the bottom. And it tells you how many verses they have in that particular Parsha. But the Parsha Miketz is strange. It's the only one that actually tells you how many words are actually in that Parsha. For example, there's 146 verses in the Parsha Miketz, but there's 2,025 words, something clearly different. And it's deliberate. It has to be. Otherwise, they would show it in others. But it's the only parsha in which this happens. Now, in Kabbalah, every Hebrew letter is seen not just as a letter, but as a living spiritual form with an inner meaning, or with inner meaning and energy. And when you look at the letters of Miketz, and there's only 3 of them, a mem, a kuf, and a sadi sofit, they tell a story, just the 3 letters. Now, it's more than likely in the process of the world's redemption that this chapter or this section was here to give us a hint at what it's going to be like at the end of time. Now, when I talk about the end of time, I'm talking about to the coming of the Mashiach. Now, let's break down, beginning with the letters of the title, Mem, Kuf, Sade, Sofit. The letters here, and if you have your own chart, it might be helpful. If you already know it, you can just listen along. But the open mem resembles that of a Jewish thinking Well, it's like a semi-closed womb. That's what they think of it as. Now, the letter mem is mostly or most easily recognized in the word mime. Mime. Mime means water. And water speaks of something that is concealed. Because if you go out and you look in a lake, most of what you're looking at is concealed. You can't see it. It's below your vision. So in case things like that are not yet revealed, it's called hidden potential. So the mem deals with something that is hidden. Now when we think about Joseph and Pharaoh, because those were the two main characters to start Miketz, followed by later on the brothers. But the beginning is between Joseph and Pharaoh. So we're going to be talking about the time of exile, when divine truth has hidden beneath layers of physicality. The sages note we're talking about being inside a womb of exile. That's what we're really talking about. Now, the form of the kuf is a line that descends. It begins with a line that descends below the baseline. In fact, it's the lowest of all of them. Now, the letter itself has two things that it really talks about. Kedusha, which is holiness, but it also talks about klipot, which is impurity. Kuf often represents the descent into deep darkness, even into the realm where impurity seems to rule, kind of like right now in our world. In Jewish history, Kuf represents the spiritual descent of humanity, with the foot falling into impurity completely. Now, in Miketz, after hiddenness, there's Mem, there's an even deeper fall, the exile that seems to get worse before it gets better. And that's talking about the Sadi Sofit. Now, Sadi, there's two words that are used, or two ways that Sadi is used in a Jewish writing. One is Sadi, and the other is Sadi Sofit. In the case of Sadi Sofit, it's the picture of two arms raised, standing on one foot. It's the final letter usually found in a word, and it stands tall and firm, almost like a righteous figure crowned, but it is standing on only one foot. And final Sadi points to the end of days, when the hidden righteousness bursts forth, and it's no longer hidden. Now, the Sadi is normally seen in a short form. That means standing or kneeling, if you will, on a shorter, wider base. That Sadi represents the Sadiq, the righteous ones. It's the hidden force that holds the world together. In Miketz, the final step the final step is the arising of the Zadok. That's Joseph. Or oftentimes, in the end of days, he'll be called Mashiach ben Yosef, standing up out of the darkness. Now, one more thing about the word, the gematria, which is the value of the letters. Well, the value of mem is 40, kuf is 100, and the final mem is 90, which totals 230. That's exciting. Well, what's amazing is that 230 is connected to the word din, or judgment. But in the end, it will be softened into what's called rachmim, which means mercy. Now, the idea 230 is their Kabbalistic hint to something else, din hometak, which is called sweetened judgment. I need to slow down and show you something. Din is about judgment and time. You know that if you go to court and you're there on a criminal charge, it's about serving justice and applying time. Well, the idea of ketz speaks to that end. It's about limit. It's about an appointed time. Din sets limits, boundaries, structures. And it's what defines when mercy ends and judgment begins. Now, the presence of Sadi can hint that a Sadiq, which is a righteous one, who stands as an intercessor between those who speak in din and those of Rakamim. Now, Kuf can symbolize the klipot, or the shells, it speaks of actions and thoughts that separate us from holiness. In Kabbalah, they call dinim, plural, the substance that conceals the spiritual light, suggesting the initial aspect of severity. Delayed judgment, din, is seen as rakmamim, hidden mercy. Now, if 230 speaks of deliberate judgment or end of concealment, it should be it should be interpreted as a space where Rakamim is allowed to operate before the final Ketz. Ketz is the word for end. Now, the Zohar teaches, or often teaches, that Rakamim tempers judgment, extending time and offering space for what we call teshuvah, a chance to return. At Miketz, which actually means at the end, the harshness, the din that seemed to so dominate becomes softer, and Rakamim floods in. So if I'm thinking about Miketz as talking not just about back then, but as a prophetic section, we're talking about the end, how harsh it is, but at the end, it seems to soften. And I think we're coming closer to that. Now, in Lurianic Kabbalah, the mituk hasadim, the sweetening of judgments, involves blending gevurah, which is din, with hesed, which is rakamim. Now, the combination of letters associated with judgment, sadi and kuf, along with mem, which is about water, flowing mercy, could hint at the process that's about to start. Now, sadi is especially meaningful here. It's the letter of the Zadok of the righteous ones who meditate between judgment and mercy, and they mediate between judgment and mercy, suggesting that 230 represents not only judgment, but also what we would call rectification. Now, for the last 2 weeks, I have been asking the question, why did they include the number 2025 in this book? Now, the number of words in the conclusion of Miketz, where it does exist, well, it just doesn't exist anywhere else. So why now and why here? Is the now about now? Now there is now there are several possibilities. And the first possibility comes from the title, Miketz, at the end. I believe it is the hint that we are approaching what the Jewish commentators call Akrit Yamamim, the end of days. And it doesn't seem odd that your title, Miketz, speaks about the end, but it does make you wonder, the end of what? Well, Miketz deals with Joseph and his first meeting with Pharaoh. And it meets because of Pharaoh's dreams and the reconciliation of Joseph to his brothers. That's what the whole story is about. Now, Pharaoh, if you remember, appoints him to be his number 2, and he renames him. Now, that's a secret. That's something that we need to know. You see, his new name was Neph-Anath Paneah, the revealer of what is hidden. So Joseph was about to tell Pharaoh, well, he's going to reveal to him something that's hidden. Mystically, Joseph is associated with Mashiach ben Yosef, the suffering I can't even think of the word, the suffering Messiah who comes before the arrival of Mashiach ben David. Now, some sources suggest that the process of Gilah, redemption, begins or accelerates in a significant way beginning in the mid 2020s, which is where we're at now. Now, the number 2025 at the end of this Parsha could symbolically point towards the year 2025 on the Gregorian calendar, tying hints found here to the beginning of the final Ketz, or the final end, which leads to the global redemption. We think of the world as coming to an end, and the answer is kind of, but no, there'll be redemption. Now, there's a hint in terms of the gematria of 2025. We don't normally think of it, but it takes an astute rabbi to realize that 2025 is, in actuality, 45 squared. That is mathematically. Now, 45 is the gematria for the name Adam. Adam in the beginning represented humanity and perfection. So 2025 could hint at the squaring or elevation of Adam or mankind, a symbol now for the rectification of mankind at the end of days. I'm going to stop for a second. I want to summarize this a little bit. The letters in the word Miketz tell a hidden story. It's a story of exile. It's a story of deep darkness. It's a story of sudden redemption. The word count 2025 hints at the cosmic end of darkness, the event for humanity. The Zohar reveals that Miketz is a code for Ketz Hayamim, the end of days. And the dreams themselves symbolize prophetic visions guiding the unfolding of the whole mystery. And Joseph represents the hidden Zadok, or the Mashiach, force that is rising in a hidden way. Now, here you are right now. I believe we might be uncovering a few of these secrets together tonight. This itself is part of the awakening. The Zohar talks about that in the final generation, even small children. And they refer to small children as those who are immature in Torah, will know the hidden things. And I believe we are a part of those immature in the Torah. In Deuteronomy 29, chapter 29, verse 28, we read, "The hidden things belong to the Lord our God." Prophetic hints, hidden things can surely be found in this Parsha. Well, what might not be obvious is the idea that hidden truths do unfold over time. So counting words might be an allusion to decoding the hidden timeline that's in here. Now, the Midrash, Bereshit Rabbah 89:1, notices something strange. When Yosef stands before Pharaoh in Bereshit 41:46, it says, Yosef was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Now, on the surface, it's just a number. But why emphasize his age so clearly? Why does he spend time talking about his age? Doesn't talk about it for every main Bible character, but he does here. So the question becomes why? Everything in the Bible or in the Torah might cause questions, thinking, and looking. Now, the Midrash goes on to explain that Joseph's 30 years hints at a cosmic principle. There is a time of hidden suffering, which we would call prison or exile, that lasts for a preordained period of time. And then, at a certain mature moment, the hidden light bursts forth. The number 30 is not a random number. It's actually the age of the priesthood beginning. In Numbers 4:5, it tells us that the Levites begin to serve at the age of 30. It's also understood it's the age identified by the sages when a person reaches full spiritual maturity. Okay, we're not done with gematria, so how about a little more? The number 30 equals the word or the letter lamed. Now, lamed can be seen as lamud, which means learning, which also means accompanied by inner growth. Before Joseph was taken before Pharaoh, he spent the night with his teacher. Well, he's in a cell all by himself. Who's his teacher? Well, the text says that the angel Gabriel came and taught him in one night 70 known languages that he needed to know before he could go stand before Pharaoh. Now, after they got together, Joseph taught him another language because you see, the 70 languages doesn't include Hebrew. And so Joseph taught him Hebrew. Now, thinking this through, inner learning is completed learning. Under subtle hints comes from the idea of light that is trapped in the prison or in a galut or in a diaspora, a place of separation. And it's in that place that light can be found. Now, several Mekolabim, Kabbalists, explain that the last phase of history before Mashiach comes, it would be at the end of a long period of harsh, humiliating, prison-like events. And then, at a precise fixed time, maturity happens, and there's a sudden revelation. Now, some even hinted that the modern exile would end in an intense spiritual darkness, almost a post-Holocaust, and it's a time of secularism, which they believed would last for around 70 to 80 years. Now, what they did was they went back to the Holocaust and used that as the example of prison. So 80 years onto that would put them at about 1990. Now, which on a 6,000 year clock, that would mean the sixth day at about 12 noon. I find it fascinating that according to the Shabbat 35b, 114b, Pesachim 50b, and Sukkot or Sukkah 54b, all found in the Talmud, all of them say that any work done after 12 o'clock noon on the sixth day must be done in honor of the coming of Shabbat. They say the final intense suffering phase would last up about 30 years before the sudden Gilad, the sudden redemption. And if that is the case, then 1995 to 2025 would be about 30 years, where many modern Kabbalists saw in the future. So it matches Joseph's final prison to palace window. Now, are we now in the very transition Joseph lived through? Joseph's, or Israel, was about to step from prison clothes to royal garments. Are we about to transition from our prison clothing to messianic robes? Now, let me ask on another idea that's been said. I think that an even deeper idea can be seen in the phrase, he stood before Pharaoh. Now, I see the phrase connected to the concept of tikkun adam, which literally means the rectification of man. Pharaoh was about to create a number two, not from his own, but from one who comes from within a prison. Now, Pharaoh should remind us of an oppressive system that kept the soul of Israel enslaved. Now, this then was Joseph, the hidden soul, stands upright before Pharaoh in the midst of the system of darkness at 30 and speaks the idea of truth can no longer be hidden. It's something the world must know and must shift to. That's what happens when you give the Pharaoh, the king, the right answer. Now, I want to share a powerful name of God associated with Ketz, because you see, there's multiple names of God. The one associated with this Parsha is Shem Kadosh. It's connected to Miketz, and it's about the sudden, unstoppable redemption. You see, that's what's going to happen. This hidden name is composed of 3 letters, a Samech, an Aleph, and a Lamed. It's based on an ancient teaching found in the Sefer Raziel Hamalek. Now, Raziel was one of the 7 archangels, and Hamalek is simply the word for the angel. So it's the book of the Sefer angel. An early Kabbalistic source. This name is used for breaking through imprisonments. It's a spiritual and physical name. It's about receiving sudden salvation, standing before kings or systems of power, and flipping darkness into light with the blink of an eye. It directly connects to Joseph's journey from prison to rulership. Now, the word Saul, which begins Samech Aleph Lamed, comes from the root which means to lift up or to elevate. There's a simple method for using this hidden meditation that has been used by the hidden Tzaddikim, and I was told it's something even Gentiles can use. Let me give you the formula. It begins by saying, sit quietly after doing the meditation of Ketz. In other words, you're going to read it and you're going to sit down and reflect on it. I want you to visualize then the 3 letters, Samech, Aleph, and Lamed, glowing in front of you, each letter one at a time. Now, the letter Samech is a circle, and it's a circle of protection and wholeness. Aleph speaks of divine unity, infinite potential. And finally, Lamed talks about ascending towards heaven. Now, as you realize each letter, as you're focusing on each letter, you're to breathe in deeply. Claim that air. Now, after seeing the full word glowing, silently say inside, repeat the letters one at a time, and end by asking the Creator to lift me into your light. O source of all lights. Now, praying with earnest, you should feel yourself rising out of a personal prison, a prison of doubts or fears or simply blockages, just as Joseph rose up. Now, it's a simple but powerful meditation. Again, Samech is a letter of support. Hashem is holding you, and even when you fall, God is still holding you. Aleph is the secret. It's the Aleph of creation, unity between all divisions. And Lamed is about learning, and it's about elevation. In Parshat Miketz, the word we naturally think of in Hebrew is the word secret, which in Hebrew is the word sod. A sod is a secret or a mystery, but in actual text, the word sod does not appear in the entire text. However, the idea of secret is connected to Pharaoh's dream and Joseph's interpretation of them. There's a key moment where the words speak of hidden or revealed. I want to, this is going to require me to show you. I want to show you sharing is not turned off. Okay, so I can share. So why can't I get to it? I want to share something, but I can't get to it. Curses. I'm foiled again. See what happens when you're working with somebody who's partially here.
Here you go.
You got it? So
I figured you had control of that since you were co-host. Go ahead.
Okay, I wasn't in control.
Okay, go ahead.
Sometimes I'm never in control. But I want to go here. This is what I want to share with you. Okay? Now, first off, the first thing I want to share is where is sowed? Where's the secret in Miketz? In Genesis 41:25, it says, and Joseph said to Pharaoh, Pharaoh's dream is one. What God is doing, he has told Pharaoh. Now, in Hebrew, it looks like I gave you a line. I also have one word that I started to highlight, and that word is the word hig, or higid, higid, higid. It's broken down this way: ose higid la pharaoh. Ose means is doing. Higid means has told or has revealed, and obviously the Pharaoh is to Pharaoh. So he has revealed to Pharaoh. Joseph is just simply the word, the noise. He's the one that's, now I can't get this one over. Oh, okay, here we go. And the Jewish scribe does not have a spelling problem, but I want you to notice in the word hig, again, I put it in red. It is hey, gimel, yud, dalet. But in the actual writing, there should be two yuds there, and there's only one. Now, what difference does it make? It's not a mistake. He did it on purpose. So the question is, why? Well, it's talking about what the Jewish people call a milui. I was told in the Torah text, and especially in the Masoretic vowels, Hebrew hagid is spelled with one yud, but the sound structure behaves as if there were two yuds. Now, in Hebrew grammar, verbs in the hifel, stem, which is causative, often include, aren't you glad you came to an English lesson? Include a yud, which is a sound as part of their structure. Because of it in the hifel form, it speaks of telling or declaring. So he is telling him a secret. Torah spelling is often defective, but it's often defective on purpose. So if we find words that are misspelled in the Torah, and we normally don't read the Hebrew side, but if you could read the Hebrew side and you find a word misspelled there, it wasn't done by accident. It was done on purpose. Now, the value of the word hidophel, did I pronounce it right? Anyway, it goes, the value of that word is 32. So God hid a secret in the number 32. What secret did he hide? Well, God hid his heart, Lev, in the word. So it was with God's heart that he said this to Pharaoh. And it also talks about the 32 paths of wisdom. The 32 paths of wisdom is a Jewish understanding that there are 10 sephirot and 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. Each of those objects, each one tells its own story. And so as we're looking at this, I can Evidently, I turned on the TV. But anyway, back to the story. So, I can cancel this now, take it out of share. Can I? Please let me take it out of share.
Here, I'll do it for you.
Okay, thank you. Whew, I'm glad you're back.
Sure.
So what I'm thinking of, or what we're talking about, is the fact that there's more to the story. That God was hiding himself in this story. He was telling Pharaoh on purpose, but it wasn't obvious that it had another meaning. That other meaning is for today. It's for today. Understand God's heart is here for all of us. Whether you like him or not, I in fact love him, but if you like him or not, he's here for you. And at some point in time, you may call upon him in order to move along, make it into that other world as we go through. So anyway, as I'm going through this and I'm looking for my notes again, what did I do with my notes? Yeah, why don't you hand me your notes? Thank you. Okay, so anyway, we've talked about the secret. Now I want to go beyond the secret. I want to give you another example. And by giving you another example, it's going to help you understand further about the concept of Malui and things hidden in the Torah. My favorite chapter in the Bible is Genesis 1. Genesis 1. Now, one of the things that I find in Genesis 1 that's so fascinating is the fact that there's a Malui there. The word is Elohim. Elohim. When I read the book of Genesis in chapter 1, I will find 32 times the word Elihu. Well, you get the idea. Elohim, 32 times in chapter 1. That's a record. It's got to be. But what is it telling us? Well, again, 32 can speak to the heart. It can also speak to the fact that God is going to share with us the understanding of the Sephiroth and the letters of the alphabet. That's going to be happening. Now, even further, we do a word count. Now, in simple gematria, the number for Elohim is 86, which is also the same word for nature. Isn't that a coincidence? God is the God of nature, not Gaia, who a lot of the people today choose to honor. Gaia being Mother Earth. I want to serve Father God as opposed to that. But anyway, in the Malui, if you take the letters of the word Elohim, and each letter, for like example, the first letter is not an E, but it's an Aleph. Well, Aleph is actually made of, if I'm going to do a real Malui, it's Aleph, it's Aleph. Somebody said it. It's Aleph, Lamed, Fe. 3 letters. Now I add up all those values. And if I go by letter by letter by letter, I'm going to find out that the value is now 489. Well, what does that do for me? Well, 489 is just not a random number. It's another secret that's wrote into the text that's not easy to see, but it's actually very mind-blowing. So, okay, let me talk to you. The full spelling of Elohim is 489, which matches the full unfolding of the creative process. It's not just that God names creation, God's inner energies, his hidden aspects, his malui, are built into the entire structure of the creation itself. Elohim is only an aspect of divine justice and structure. It's not the whole thing. It's one part, but it frames the whole creation story, the whole story. So Mului 489 is it's not a parlor trick. It's a literal understanding and revealing. Again, that's what Ketz is about. We're revealing what is hidden inside even the smallest of letters and the smallest of words. So when Joseph says in Genesis 41:25, God has told Pharaoh, he's not just interpreting a dream, he's revealing the hand of Elohim, balancing hidden things, showing things to him that he himself would never see because they're hidden in history. They're not all revealed yet, but they are being revealed to us now. Again, this is about language. It's about revealing something that is hidden. Okay, let me take that for, I need to walk carefully because it becomes lots more complicated. But good luck. You only have another half page before I'm done. So be okay. By the way, I told you at the beginning, if you weren't here, I'm not done tonight. There'll be another part next week, which will finish, I hope. Although I can't tell you that because I was supposed to be finished a week ago. But every time I stop, Mary tells me something new and I end up, no, she doesn't. The Bible is so rich. And if you get a glimpse of the Hebrew side, it's just amazing what's there that leaves itself open. I encourage you to listen to the other rabbis that are on this network. I also encourage you to listen to a man named a rabbi, although he's not a rabbi, he's a school teacher, Ephraim Palvanov. He's on YouTube. Amazing teacher who, again, is doing a better job than I am doing teaching all these kinds of things. Okay, let's get back to the story. Pharaoh says to Joseph in 41:15, and Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter for it. But I have heard it said that you understand, and can reveal a dream and interpret it to me. Again, the word sowed is not there, but revealed is there. The concept is the fact that there is something there that can be revealed. And not only to Pharaoh, but it can be revealed to us today. Because I think we're looking at this same chapter from a different perspective, thousands of years later, but it's the same story. For fun, I asked AI, I do that every once in a while, how many words before the word secret or the point where the secret is revealed are there? The problem was I couldn't give him an accurate answer because secret's not there. And so he couldn't help me. So I went to my other source, Vendel Jones. And I don't know if you know who Vendel Jones is. Vendel Jones he's now passed away, but he is a tremendous former Baptist minister who gave it all up to become a archaeologist and a student of Hebrew. Well, anyway, Vendel Jones taught me that the mystical thought time is not linear, but cyclical and ascends like an auger. So, in other words, what's down here may again reappear. It comes by that idea. Think of this Yom Kippur happens once, but it happens to be celebrated once every year. So the concept is carried on, taken from time to time. All of the concepts there, everything in history recycles itself. we're now at the point where, as we read, and we're not reading Miketz anymore because we're in the books of Leviticus, studying the Parshas there. But if we were still in Genesis, we would study this chapter again. I think in 2025, the words in Miketz, it seems to hint to me that there's a prophecy or the idea of an end of something. Now, Miketz in 2025 in a secular timeline somehow involves humanity. But I don't want to take it to humanity. I want to take it to Adam, 45 squared. I want to take it to mankind. This is a story for mankind, getting back to the original Adam. That's where you and I will be in the future. So, has redemption and the Mashiach Joseph made an appearance? Maybe. Is there a major hidden shift emerging from darkness, dreams, clarity? Okay, so I want to conclude tonight right there.